This demonstration is about importing and using data that is in comma-separated values format or CSV format. This is a type of delimited format, so it's delimited or separated by something. In this case, it's separated by commas, but there are other forms of delimited files. You can have a file that's delimited or separated where the data is separated by space. CSV is the most common format. And so we're going to take a look at that and see how you use this data primarily in Excel. Well, only in Excel for this demonstration. So I've gone to the Federal Reserve Bank of St. Louis, their economic research website, because it has a lot of economic data available and it's an easy source for this. So I'm going to scroll down and select the unemployment rate. This is nice because they provide a nice chart for us we can look at. You can even scroll through and find out at different time periods what the unemployment rate was. So if your dad is talking about getting a job or something and you want to compare the unemployment rate when he was in college to what the unemployment rate is now and how difficult it might be to find a job comparatively, maybe you go here and look at the numbers. So this data is certainly available, but here visually, so you can look at it. But often, most often, in connection with analyzing data, you're going to want to take a look at it and build the chart yourself and that type of thing. So you will go over here to download the data. Now the default here, there actually isn't one. You can download it in several different formats. Notice you can download it in Excel. That's okay, but I would encourage you to get in the habit of using the CSV because it is a portable format and you won't always be using Excel to analyze data. So knowing how to work with CSV files is important, and often that's all that's available. So you can get lots of things here. I'm going to click on the CSV. Notice that it downloads. One of the things about a CSV file, again, comma separated values, is that it's very compressed and portable. You can send it easily, right? So it doesn't take up a lot of space. Now, this actually doesn't have that much data as far as rows, even though it goes back to the 1940s here, because there's essentially one value for every year. So, but if you were working with a big data set that has, thousands and thousands of rows with multiple attributes or columns, then the CSV has the advantage of being quick because it's small, quick to share, quick to download, that type of a thing. So my system is set, I don't know if you can see that little icon down there. My system is set up to automatically import this into Excel. Yours may or may not be. Often that's the default, that if you just click on this, it will open up in Excel, but it may not. So if you do click on it and it opens up in Excel, that's kind of the easy part. I want to show you if you have to manually do that. So what I have here is I've started Excel and I'm ready to either create a new workbook or do whatever. And so I'm going to select Open, and I'm going to go down to my my downloads folders. And it's not there. Oh, it's not there because that's kind of funny. It's hard to think on your feet when you're doing this, right? It's not there because the default files that it's looking for is all the Excel files. So my awkwardness is a good learning moment for you. I do this regularly, so anyway, it's kind of funny. What you need to do is you need to select all files, and then it will show up, right? So it shows up, and I can select it and open it, and then Excel kind of automatically knows that because it's a comma separated value format, what to do with that. Now I want to go into that and just look at that. So that's what it looks like in Excel, and if you just clicked here on Excel, it would come in and it looks like an Excel file, but it's not. So you have to be careful with that. In fact, if we went out here to File and then Save, I'm sorry, file save as. If I save it, it's going to save it as a CSV. But notice that the default now is it's saving it back as a CSV. And if you do a lot of work in your Excel, your data analysis in Excel, and you're using CSV, you want to make sure and change this to an Excel workbook. And then all of the things you've added to it will be saved, because comma separated value is not going to save the formulas that you put in there, the charts that you put in there, all of that. So that's something you have to pay attention to. So let's take a look at what this file just looks like. So here I have my browser, file browser, and I'm just going to open this up with something like Notepad just to look at the file. Notice this is why they're so convenient, CSV files, because all that's there is the data and the commas. So we have the headings here, date. In fact, let's look at these side by side. You can take a look at that. So notice we have the headings here. Date, just uppercase, exactly like it's there. A comma separates it, so Excel knows to use a different column for that. And then the next one, which is unrate, which is the unemployment rate. And then there's what we would call a carriage return or a line feed or a return. It's on the next line, and that's how Excel knows. This is a standard method within comma separated values format. That's how Excel knows to have it be the next row. So the next row is January of 1948. We have a comma, and then value is 3.4. If there were more data values, more columns that needed to be there, we would just, it would be here, and it can be a number that represents something, right? So up here, maybe we have I don't know, for lack of a better example, I'm going to put X, Y, and Z. Of course, those are terrible heading names, but it illustrates what can happen here. So X is 5, Y is no, and Z is maybe, right? Now, I can save this, and yeah, I have it open over here, so we're going to call it number 2. And then I'm going to open it up. Oh, and actually what I did, you'll notice this, I saved it as a text format, and that's an easy mistake to make. So if you're creating a CSV, you need to ensure that you save it with the extension of a .csv. Otherwise, your system won't. So I'm going to select all files so it doesn't force that .txt, which is a text file. Notice that number 2 was saved as a text file. And if it doesn't have that extension, Excel doesn't really know what to do with it. So I'm going to call this number 3 and save it, and then show you here that the system knows what to do with it. Again, I could open it up the way I did before, but I'm just going to double click on here and show you that that my Excel or my system is set up to automatically do this. But it brings it in. You can see it knows exactly what to do. It's very easy to set up. So that's an example of what happens here. Now, if I go to save this file, and I do, let's save it as the Excel workbook. Okay. Now, it looks the same here, but it is an Excel workbook. And if we look at the, I'm going to close it down here. If we look at this, it's hard to tell when you just look at this. Now, the icon is a little different, and if I hover over here, it will tell me it's a comma separated values file, or down here, this is, there you go, it's a Microsoft Excel workbook. So it's, when you're looking in your File Explorer, it may be difficult to tell which is which, and you'll have to spend a little bit of time doing that. I want to open this up with the same tool, just the Notepad. Let's see. Okay, I'm not set up to open it with the Notepad. I would have to do some gymnastics here. So We're not going to do that. What I'm going to open it with is another tool that I have, which is called Notepad Plus, which is essentially just an enhanced Notepad viewer. And here's what I want to demonstrate. It's not readable except by Excel or other tools that are designed to read Excel files. You can't just read the plain text. And this is why the Excel file is going to be much larger than the CSV file, and why when you're sharing data that it's often best to share it via CSV. Now, if you're using Excel and your team is using Excel and the file itself is not huge, then certainly you can share it that way. But if you're working on certain data and someone else wants to work on that same data and they don't need the analysis you've already done, it's best to save it as a CSV file, and then they can import it into to Excel. So this is all of the code that Excel adds and the way that Excel stores the information so that it's known to be an Excel file. I've been demonstrating poor naming conventions on my files, and this leads to confusion about what is a CSV and what is an Excel file. So I want to correct that for you, demonstrate a good naming convention. So in front of you I have that CSV file that I've downloaded, and I'm simply going to rename it with an underscore and a CSV. You can use whatever convention you want, pattern you want, but somehow to distinguish this as a CSV. It does have the CSV extension, but that extension is not visible normally in the Windows browser. So I've renamed it. And now when I open up Excel, and let's import this into Excel, I'm going to open and browse to the location where I've stored this, which is my downloads folder, which is just for the purpose of the demonstration. Obviously I wouldn't keep things in there. Notice again, all Excel files. There are no Excel files in my download folder, so I must change this to all. And then I can see that CSV file. I can select it and open it. And there's my file. Now, I had shown saving it, so I want to save it as, and I'm going to save it as an Excel file. And this time I'm going to change the name. Again, you can use whatever convention you want. But I'm simply going to put Excel on the end of this. That's one way to do that. And there we go. Now when I open the directory, I can see that I have an Excel version and a CSV version, and that's great. And in fact, the other thing I want to show you is how to take how to take an Excel version. So this is the Excel version, and we know because of the name. So if I expand this, you should be able to see the name there. Unrate Excel. This is Excel version. If I want to save it, I've done work on it, or I've added data to it, or I want to share just the data with someone from an Excel file, I can actually save this as a CSV. So again, just save as. I can come over here and I can select the CSV, comma delimited. Of course, I used that word earlier. Delimited just means separated by, in this case, comma. And I'm going to select that. Now this is a CSV, so I'm going to change that, and it's actually an extra copy of it, so I don't want to overwrite my original one, so maybe I'll just put a _2 for like a version 2, or I could even use a V2 to let myself know it's version 2. What I often do, my naming convention actually uses dates, so I would often put the date on here, 2020 8/28, and then I would put like a .2 if it's the second one, or a .3 if it's the third one. That way I know what date I worked on it. But you can use whatever convention works for you, some way that you can distinguish these. So again, when we go into the browser and when we're looking at these, I can see what's a CSV and I can see what is an Excel file. So, and that also demonstrates, again, just the process of opening those CSV files up in Excel, saving it as an Excel format, which will save your graphs, the analysis that you do, functions that you add within Excel, but also then exporting the data back to a CSV. Now, keep in mind when you export the data back to a CSV, all you're going to get is the data. You're not going to get the charts and the graphs and the functions and that type of thing. So keep that in mind. Okay, till next time, keep on learning.